Hallo, ich bin wieder da, die Anna, und ich sitze mit unserem Regisseur von unserer kommenden Premiere, unserer Produktion Kátja Kabanová, Lawless. Und wir haben jetzt auch eine Bühnenorchesterprobe hinter uns und ich möchte mit Steven ein bisschen sprechen. Hi Steven.
Hi Danny.
I'm really enjoying to working with you, and I'm sure it will be really great production with a lot of feeling on the stage and also a lot of feeling in the singers. And you have already done a couple of productions in Magdeburg, so you have your experience with Magdeburg theater, with Magdeburg singers. What's your feeling after many of productions in Magdeburg?
Well, I mean, the pleasure of working somewhere several times is that I know the house, I know its strengths, I know its weaknesses, and the house knows my strengths and my weaknesses as well. So it's, you know, we have an understanding which, when you come to a house new, you don't have. So it's a great pleasure for me. The other pleasure, of course, is that with this cast, most of whom I've worked with before, with this Stadttheater system, these people have worked together time after time after time. So there's none of that urgency to try and create an ensemble with people.
Human being.
Absolutely,
yeah.
It's there. They automatically respond to each other because they've been responding to each other on stage for years. So it's it makes life a lot easier for me in one way, and it also means that I think you can go much further with it because you don't have to build something from scratch. From
yeah, this human basic, it's very important in the theater because all of us, we are trying to produce feelings, and it's of course it's important that the people have understanding between each other. Yes. And it's also not the first production for you in Czech, and also you had already experience with Czech music.
I did Rusalka here 2 years ago, I think it was, which was a revelation for me because it was the first Czech opera I'd done. And for some reason, it hadn't really come into my eye line, Rusalka. Except curiously, about 4 years ago, I went and saw it because a friend of mine was conducting it in the UK. And I sat there thinking, what have I missed? I mean, this extraordinary, unique sound world that's created.
It's different.
It is totally different, and even more so with this. Because in a sense, you can see where, to a certain extent, you can see where Dvořák comes from.
Yes.
This, you can kind of see where it comes from. But it is, Janáček is totally unique, and you know, he didn't found a school. This is just a one-off,
you're right.
Totally individual.
Just standing upside. This is Janáček is Janáček. This is not a school.
And what intrigues me is, you know, that when I started out many years ago, the centre of the operatic repertoire in terms of 20th century works was Strauss and Puccini and all of that. But now they have been slightly sidelined, and I think that Janáček, probably more than anybody, possibly with Belgium and Britain, are absolutely at the centre of the operatic repertoire in terms of 20th century works, and rightly so, because it's not just the extraordinary quality of the music making, it's the extraordinary quality of the drama and the originality of the drama. Because certainly with Janáček, is of the 5 operas that are regularly performed, Jennifer, Kátja, Schlaufuchslein, Macropolis, Case and House of the Dead. 4 of them are fundamentally about women and about strong women, and not just the central characters, but I mean Kabanová strong in this, as well as Kátja, and Varvara as well. Jennifer, Macropolis Case, the vixen.
Strong character.
Indeed. And Janáček, and I think that Janáček has this idea. He wasn't a conventionally religious man. He didn't believe in God. He was an atheist, I think you'd say. But he was pantheist. He believed in something that there is a kind of spiritual dimension to the world and to music and everything, and he sees that fundamentally in terms of the feminine, I believe. And it's interesting with the opera that's outside of that canon, which is outside in Totenhaus, is that there is virtually no women in it, and it deals with a world without soul. And I find that very, not only interesting, I find it very moving as well. So he writes operas that are for us.
So do you have a special message in this, in your staging and your directing of this piece?
Well, I think that the story behind Kátja, and I'm not talking about the Ostrovsky, but about Janacek's personal story behind it, is I think it was in 1905, he wrote an opera called Osud, Fate, Destiny,
yes.
which was about a composer meeting a younger woman who he falls in love with. In 1917, towards the end of the First World War, he meets this woman, Kamila Stürsleva, who is married, who is 40 years his junior, by chance, whom he falls in love with. So there is this idea in it of almost of not only of fate, but almost kind of predestination, which is something that Janacek believed in. And it's something that we've tried to pursue in this, that a minute can make a difference to somebody's life and to somebody's death. If Kátja had not met Boris,
yes,
I think it would be right to say, I think Kátja would have broken out of this loveless marriage that it's not a loveless marriage, but it's an unsatisfactory marriage.
Normal,
yeah,
or standard.
Yeah.
She has to be like, okay, this is my husband, and without feeling.
Yeah. But she bumps into this guy, and what we try and do in this is the thing about predestination is it doesn't. You can meet somebody and fall in love with them. It doesn't mean that person that you fall in love with is a good person, or
Do you?
And that's what I've tried to do with this.
Your
with Boris.
interpretation is that the Boris is not a lovely person.
No.
He's not in real love with Kátja. So do you think he's like playing with her?
Yeah, I think he's a bored man from the city stuck in the country who tries to get his
boring.
Tries to relieve the boredom with another man's wife.
Yes.
I do think though that by the end of it, this kind of slightly playboy mentality of his is transformed a little bit by his association with her. I think, in the future he would think twice about the damage that he causes.
So, I'm really looking forward.
Me too.
We still have 1 more week.
Yep. And I just want to say one other thing. What has been a joy of listening to the orchestral rehearsals is that vocally, and what I've heard from down there, you could put this show on anywhere in the world. I think the standard of it is incredibly high, and it's been an absolute joy to listen to.
Thank you.